Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming today to our little celebration. Hello, hello, hello. We've got a wonderful host of characters today to help us sort of celebrate. How does this work? Do I talk first, or do you talk first? Or
I didn't realize we were all going to be on right off the jump.
yeah, well, it's a celebration.
You started
So
talking and I looked up
That
and
was mildly
realized
shocking.
I was
We're
there
all
too.
here at the same time. We were all kind of waiting, like, wait, hang on. There we are.
boom! Welcome to the celebration, y'all.
Like, boom.
As I've been sort of sharing on, wherever I ended up sharing this, I've just been geeking out like crazy the last 2 days, and actually, it started as early as this week when I was hanging out with Kayla talking Lego, and I shared a little bit about our Disney trip. Kind of went through Galaxy's Edge. She was there. She's a big geek for Star Wars too, and then Celebration came. And so this time of year, whenever there is a celebration, kind of is a big deal for me, at least for the last couple of years that it's been streamed. I've either like taken time off work one day usually to just like hang out at home and watch the live streams, or I didn't quite do that this year, but anyway, it's a big deal for me, and I love Star Wars. Star Wars has kind of been there, and for most of the sort of nerdy, geeky people that I run into, whether it's toy people, comic people, Star Wars at some point comes into their life. So I just put it out there, like different folks I knew, was like, "Hey, you want to come hang out and celebrate Star Wars?" And there you are. And I know there might be some other people, there might not. Either way, we're celebrating tonight. So I will get to the chat in a second, but just want to quickly, if we could just do sort of some brief introductions, and maybe if you could be any Star Wars character, big or small, who would you choose to be and why? We'll start in this direction.
Oh, okay. I get to
Aaron
go first.
Payne's toy samples.
All right, I'm Aaron. I'm Payne Soy Samples. Let's see. If I had to choose somebody, probably C-3PO. I'd want to be able to communicate with anybody, anywhere. And I might be a little pretentious too, so it works out.
Very nice. Let's go over there, Adam.
It's that way.
If I could be any Star Wars character, I would be Kes Burrell, which is a character that doesn't exist because I created it. Because I'm that much of a Star Wars nerd that if I were in universe, I would have a name and a whole character.
And I'm so curious how long you've been hanging on to that. Is that like is that a name and character bio that's existed for a while, or is that
years? Yeah, it was because of I can't remember when. It was because of a video game, I think. You needed a username.
Got it.
And I was like, well, I can't just have a username. Like it has to be, if I'm playing as a character, I want to have the character's name. So I spent days like figuring out names that were sort of in universe, but weren't quite, straight ripoffs.
Sure.
But yeah, it was, yeah. I've used that ever since. Anytime I needed like a username for a video game thing or something like that. So.
Nice. Well, like my hat's off to you there, you big old nerd. Let's keep moving.
I'll say this though. Like I'm a nerd in a weird way because like I'm a nerd in I'm into that. But when you say like you took a day off to watch a live stream, you messaged me this morning. You're like, "Hey, are you watching this?" And I was like, "No, I have no interest in Anthony Carboni interviewing Anthony Daniels in the most awkward 5 minutes of either of their lives." That's like, I'm into the toys, I'm into the games, I'm into the movies, I'm into all that stuff. I love it. But when it comes to the like tangential stuff that exists, it doesn't do anything for me.
Awesome. Well, I hope.
So I haven't seen any of the trailers. I don't know any. So I said this to you this morning. I said, this will be like my firsthand, like, you guys will be like, "Did you see this?" And I'll be like, "No, tell me about it." So we'll see how this goes.
All right. Does this mean anything to you?
No.
All right. Good for you. All right. Let's go down. Let's go back below, and then we'll head over that away.
Okay. Everyone like photos. Probably. I mean, it's gonna be. I mean, Boba Fett. That's always been my favorite character. I mean, ever since I was little, so it has to be Boba Fett. I mean, he's one of the original ones, my favorites. So, I mean, kind of the mystery and kind of the mystique has kind of gone away a little bit. I was a fan of the Book of Boba Fett show, but yeah, I mean, like 80s, 90s, where it was like he was the man of mystery, not too much known about him.
Yeah.
That was like, yeah, I mean, that flight suit, everything, the armor, yeah, it has to be him.
Right on, Boba Fett. And again, how does this work? Do you talk first? Do I talk first? It's you, Kylo.
First, I want to say, in the words of my grandfather, yippee, now this is what I call pod racing.
And that is how we celebrate. So who would your character be? Your grandfather?
Of course, I will finish what he has started.
Got it. Well done. Okay. All right. Well, welcome, Kylo Ren. I didn't realize we were gonna have in-universe folk here tonight. So that's what's up. Okay. So yeah, I was kind of envisioning hearing from folks, and then we should, it sounds like people have picked up on it. Let's hear from the chat as well. We had a first and we had a second. What's up, Trevor? Hope you're having a good night and know it's late where you are at. Thanos.
Matters if you win.
Thanos is in the house. What's going on? Nolan, how are you? Carol, good to see you. Eldor, hello. Ray Black, how are you doing?
I know a Ray.
Yes, you do. And apparently a Ray, spoiler alert, Adam, or whoever else wasn't paying attention, Ray's coming back.
Oh, I saw that. I don't really
era.
know the details, but I saw a
There's
picture.
No details. There's no details. The details are some angry Star Wars nerds, flipping out right now.
Man, the sad comments. I can only imagine.
I was watching a live probably 45 minutes ago, and the guy was on there just complaining and griping about it. I'm like, really?
About the fact that
Ray is
the
getting
Ray that Kylo knows is okay, got it.
Yeah, I was just like, really? That's what? I don't
understand.
understand.
Continue what my uncle has begun.
What's going on, Jeremy?
We're not the greatest doesn't mean that they were bad characters.
Well, yeah, we'll circle back.
So,
I want to make sure we say hello to everyone. Hello, Jeremy. How's it going? No Figures will be injured tonight, and
probably not.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Quip. What's going on? Let's see. I know folks started naming that. There you go. Here we go. Jeremy's like, I'd be Lando. No explanation. I'd just be Lando. All right.
I can see it.
Because he's a flamboyant black man.
Yeah. And the capes. And the capes.
The capes, yeah.
Let's see. And Quip is saying Ray Skywalker. There you go. Why, Quip? Why? We would love to know. And why are you angering nerds everywhere? All right. So thank you for hanging out. Every time we sort of ask the folks who are in the stream kind of questions, I'd love to sort of hear what the chat has to say as well. I'm really curious because really is about celebrating. And I will tell you all, I have been a Star Wars nerd since I was born. Literally, I was born into a house with an older brother who was 5 years my senior. I was born in 1976. So by the time I was one, that fool was already seeing A New Hope, Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah.
That later became known as A New Hope. And so by the time I could sort of talk and be aware of the world, there were Kenner action figures, some vehicles and play sets in the house. There were, God, I don't remember if these existed before. They probably, I think this is after I was born, but there were 12-inch dolls that existed. And my mom actually is a doll collector, and for whatever reason, those were hers. So in other words, like there were Star Wars sheets. I'm trying to remember what else, but man, I just
Empire Strikes Back sheets.
Yep,
They go on my kids' beds.
Very nice.
Yo, I have Star Wars bed sheets on my bed right now.
New, vintage? What are we talking?
I didn't sleep in a queen size bed with a lady when I was 11 years old.
I didn't put 2 and 2 together, so now you and your partner sleep in a bed that has Star Wars sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Does she celebrate Star Wars too, or does she suffer through it with you?
She tolerates it.
Okay.
I think that's how it is a lot of times, is we find the people that tolerate it.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. But anyway, that's how I came across Star Wars. And before I share a little bit more, I'm just curious for you all, and maybe we can go the reverse order, starting with the grandson of Anakin Skywalker.
He was born into it too.
Right. I know. Yeah. I guess he was. It's strong in his family. But I am kind of curious.
Me into this life. My uncle took me when I was young and tried to make me a Jedi. But Emperor Snoke has shown me. He wasn't an emperor. What was Snoke? Anybody?
He was a meat puppet.
Supreme leader Snoke.
Mm-hmm.
Showed me the way of my grandfather. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't see.
I was incredibly curious how long that was going to last. And why don't you take a breath?
Too long.
Take a breath and acclimate to the thing to the oxygen without the rebreather. While I bring in another friend who's here to celebrate tonight.
Well, I just want to ask: was the voice modulator in the helmet?
It is not. That was my microphone.
Gotcha.
That was legit.
All right, let me bring in one other celebrant today. We've got Allison Troy in the house. Hello, Allison. Yes.
Oh. Sorry.
Yeah, brought you home. What happened?
Man, I was, I can't hear those things.
So you saw Chris take his off, so you're like, nah.
Well, it's not that. It's just like they go right over my ears.
Yeah, gotcha. So. Hey, Allison, thank you for joining us. Real quick, just to catch you up. If you could be any character in Star Wars, who would you be? Or what would you be, and why?
I don't know. That's hard to say,
Yeah. As you adjust your gown.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably a senator from Alderaan.
Okay.
I had to guess,
Okay. Hopefully, awkward.
Yeah, awkward, right?
Yeah, I was about to say hopefully a living one.
Well, possibly.
Sorry, rest in peace, fair princess.
R.I.P.
/ rebel.
Right.
Well, thank you for joining us,
Thanks,
Allison. We were about to start off, and I don't want to put you on the hot seats too quickly after already doing it once. But we'll go back to Chris from Shiny Plastic People, who has now revealed his true identity. He is not actually Kylo Ren, for Kylo Ren is no longer.
That's unfortunate. I had a line ready for you, Chris.
I know. I didn't know you were going to be here. I would have held on just a little longer.
Kylo Ren, I detected your foul stench when I was brought on board.
This is everything, folks. Thank you. This is exactly what I was looking for. I appreciate you all. Chris, if you how did you come into the Star Wars galaxy?
So I wasn't born into it. I had a friend who was a big nerd, and his dad loved Star Wars, so I kind of got a little bit of that in elementary school, and it was always on USA Network.
Uh-huh.
Nobody wanted to pay money for Star Wars.
Hey.
So, and you couldn't get toys or anything. You just had to live through books you could check out at the library and watch on USA. But thankfully, my spouse does love Star Wars. So, I kind of got away from it. And I just have to share, we started dating and she talked about how she had an office mate who had Star Wars collection competition with her. So I used my toy hunting powers to really up her game.
So she's the bigger fan than you are, is what I'm hearing.
Most likely, yeah.
Okay. Right on. That's great. Okay. Cool. So how about you? Let's go in reverse order and we'll kind of go along the bottom there. John, you're
me. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, similar with you, Brick, I have an older brother. I was born in '82, and he's 9 years older than me. So he actually saw the first Star Wars at the drive-in. Him and our cousins when he was young, and pretty much by the time I was born, it was pretty much wrapping up with Jedi, soon to come out. But I had all the toys. I mean, well, from my brother, he had pretty much every single thing from A New Hope, Empire, Jedi, and all that kind of just got passed down to me as he kind of moved on to different things. But yeah, I mean, I pretty much picked up everything that he had and then kind of just kept with it, even though there was nothing really coming out as I was growing up. The Droids cartoon kind of was, and Ewoks, that sort of deal. And then of course I had all the VHSs from the original, remastered trilogy. And then, and I remember, just like Christmas, like clockwork, they would always come on USA for Christmas, and that was always a special. That it's kind of like an unofficial Christmas movie for me, because it's like I remember always watching it on Christmas whenever they would show the trilogy on the USA Network. But and then again, I just kind of kept up with it. I read a lot of the comic books, and then also when the Power of the Force 2 came out, just now being a little bit older, being a teenager, now, getting back into collecting, getting back into the figures at that point, just kind of just ran with it still. And then kind of fell out of it a little bit. But then as the sequels came out, then that love's always going to be there. I mean, anything that has a Star Wars name attached to it, I'm always going to go towards it. It's just like a tractor beam, just going to be sucking me in. It doesn't matter what it is. As long as it's got Star Wars in the title or some semblance of that, I'm gonna be right there with it. Yeah, and actually, I thought Allison was actually doing a little spoof on the Spaceballs when when she took off her headphones. See, I got a little bit, yeah.
A little there.
May the Schwartz be with you, Allison. Then that's perfect.
Well, it was 1977, and there was this new movie out that everyone was going to see, and I got dragged because I was like a toddler. Okay. And it didn't say A New Hope or anything. There was just an opening crawl. And pretty much from the beginning, it was just, I mean, if you've seen what we had on television back then, Donnie and Marie, and Star Wars was just huge. Like, it hit really big. Everyone was into it. Probably me a little bit more than everyone else, but yeah. So just since it took my crappy little town a while to get it. So it's not like I got to see it opening weekend, because everything, like, we had 2 theaters and they both had 1 screen because it was the 70s. But we went. I've seen every Star Wars in the theater 7 times.
Really?
And, yeah, even the Clone Wars cartoon, like, it's a thing. So yeah, like, it's just always been there, and it was huge at on the playground. It was the shit. I hope I can say shit on the internet.
No one's stopping you. It's a Star Wars word.
Yeah, so it just and like, you couldn't get toys originally, so it was like the comic books, the puzzles. It was a big deal when the toys hit. Everybody had to have them. And then, of course, it went away almost 40 years ago now, when Jedi came out. And there were other things. And then, we didn't really have adult collectors back then. So all my stuff went into a box. And then when Heir to the Empire came back, it all sort of came back. So I was well into adult collecting pretty much because of Power of the Force, too. And it's kind of just been there since. I'm not as thrilled with Hasbro's output these days, but Star Wars is still huge. Like,
Yeah, maybe huger than it ever has been, simply by volume, even, and reach. Yeah.
Well, and that's the weird thing, because like we didn't have a lot of it, so it's now that it's everywhere. It's kind of Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda.
Yes, exactly. And we'll continue the sort of circle, but just to give you a sense of like its reach, I was rushing back here because my family had plans with good friends of ours out in Richmond on the other side of the bay to go to this sort of thing that was closing down as a VR experience where you go to space and you actually sort of are moving through the ISS, the International Space Station, and there's different little video clips and stuff, and it looks like you're there. And there's one where SpaceX kind of attaches to the ship, and these astronauts from the USA come in. And I'm watching this, then suddenly there's like a little baby Grogu stuffed animal like floating around that I guess one of them had brought on board, and I'm just like, wow, this thing literally is everywhere, and it's in space, and like its reach is out there, as you say, Grogu everywhere. So anyways, it's fascinating because I definitely want to celebrate tonight, and I also kind of want to wrap our heads around a little about like what it means at this time. Like its reach is very different than what you just described for us, right? Where it kind of was the only game in town, and it changed the game. And now there are other games in town, right? But it's still this massive juggernaut, and people are gathered in Europe. If you didn't know, folks, it's Celebration Weekend, and that's kind of what I was hinting at. And this year, the big celebration, which is essentially a massive fan convention that has happened for, is it 15 different times now, I want to say, is in the UK. And so I've been waking up the last 2 days. I always wake up really early, but they've been live streaming it, and I've been watching it, and I've been listening to it and checking out news and bugging people on Discords because I'm taking over certain channels and just dumping stuff. And as I put in the description, I realized, oh yeah, I do have a YouTube channel, so I should probably use it. And that's where we're at tonight. So we're continuing. Let's go back, I guess. Let's start from Adam and then work our way back, and then I'll kind of reintroduce folks, and then we'll move on.
I just wanted to look this up because you mentioned that you've been bothering people. You messaged me at 7:23 this morning. Are you watching
Pacific time?
Pacific time.
And I held back, friend. The only reason I hit you up at 7 was because it was the Return of the Jedi. I hit the Return of the Jedi stuff, and I know that that's your favorite movie. So,
man, without
and
a doubt,
it's the 40th anniversary of that movie. So,
and in fairness, I was wide awake. My 11-month-old woke up at about 5:30, so I was like well into my day by that point. But my introduction to Star Wars, since we're listing our birth dates and sort of how that sort of plays into it, I'm 82 as well, so I didn't see any of them in theater. My first exposure that I am aware of to Star Wars was Return of the Jedi. That was the first Star Wars movie that I saw, and I was 5 years old. I was in kindergarten, and I would go to kindergarten, and then I would walk 3 blocks to the babysitter's house. But the babysitter was like all day babysitter for, at that time, my younger brother, who's 2 years younger, so he's 3. Most of the other kids were sort of all day as well, so they're of that age. I was the oldest, so they would just put me in this basement, and they'd be like, you can pick, a VHS to watch. And every single day it was Return of the Jedi. So, I mean, of course, Return of the Jedi is going to be my favorite. And I've said this before, but it is, and I think it always will be my favorite Star Wars for that very simple reasons. But then beyond that, the toys were already out, so I picked up a couple. Well, my parents picked up a couple for me. I had the bed sheets, I had everything. It was I'd build X-wings out of like Lego or Duplo or sort of whatever cardboard, just because I didn't have vehicles. I just had a few figures. And then it was same thing. Like my whole life, it's just sort of always been there. Even when there's those, the ebbs and flows of Star Wars, in terms of what's being released or how popular it was at the time. One of the coolest sort of Star Wars moments that I've ever sort of experienced was when they re-released the original trilogy before they did the prequels. I was in Japan and there was like a whole big like they had giant posters for Star Wars in Japan, and I was like, to me as a teenage kid, that was like a trip because I was like, people watch this, in other places. I mean, obviously, but like, you kind of don't realize that it has that same, it's not that grand everywhere else, but it was huge there, and it was just like, you realize that this thing is global. It's there's nothing that sort of like, it's inclusive, right? Everybody can sort of identify with something or someone in Star Wars, and so it's I think unique in that way that even if you identify as C-3PO or whatever, right? Like it's you're there, you're represented.
All the droids feel represented. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn.
Yes, it is your turn, C-3PO.
Right,
you see that? That was perfect.
Let's see. The first real memory I can have is we went to a midnight showing of Empire Strikes Back when I was 6. I know that I was sleepy, but I was watching that movie. I enjoyed that movie. I'm pretty sure that I was taken to Star Wars, the original, when I was probably 3, but I don't remember it. But I do remember that showing of Empire with my dad. It was one of the few memories that I have of him that was good. And the toys, my brother and I got the toys. We had the 12-inch Boba Fett, the 12-inch Chewbacca. I had a bunch of the figures. Not very many of the vehicles because, those were expensive, but the figures were cheap. We weren't rich, so it wasn't one of those situations where I could get, whatever vehicle. I had a couple, but most of them were like the tiny ones, the little but Star Wars has always kind of been a throughput from that as a child. As a young adult, when the books came out, started with Heir of the Empire, and pretty much I read every book through Jedi Outcast. There's some rough spots in there, but I was grateful to have that connection to it. I read the comics as a kid. I had quite a few of those comics. They've been lost to the ages since then. It's one of the few of my comics collection that did not make it to adulthood. But it's one of those things where I connected with it because it was just something unique at the time. I mean, there was nothing. Even in '80, there was stuff that was coming out that was sort of like it, but you don't give too many space wizards. You didn't. It wasn't anything like it. So that's kind of my way through it. And then, of course, Power of the Force I got all the vehicles that I didn't get as a kid through Power of the Force. So that was kind of how that worked out. But I did, I let go of my collection in April of last year.
Okay.
Kept some pieces that were extremely important to me. And my son, he got to pick through it and pick a couple things out. And of course, he picked the Rancor monster and the Bantha because, he had to keep those because he wanted those for his room. So I must have done something right. He also wanted a Jango Fett. So
yeah, he got sucked into the Mandos. Right on. Okay, so we've got, if you didn't know, just to kind of quickly go through, everybody here is a toy collector, which has kind of been the focus of my channel. And clearly everybody has some sort of connection to Star Wars. Sounds mostly positive, including potentially through our spouses mostly. I love that. And so just if you haven't figured everyone out, everyone's got their names up. These are their channels. I will go back and make sure it's in the descriptions, but definitely do that. We've got a fascinating toy community that, like, again, it's kind of like there's all these connections. I don't usually talk Star Wars on my channel, but I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. But oddly, I'm actually not collecting Star Wars toys anymore. It's just that that's sort of where I've come. But I am kind of curious, of the folks who are here right now, who actually is currently collecting like current lines of Star Wars, or I guess even maybe going back and actively going after Star Wars stuff, vintage or whatever. Who is that?
I'm doing a little bit of the Black Series stuff, but I honestly only started when Mandalorian came out. Because it seemed like a decent starting point to kind of get in a little bit. And then beyond that, I do Black Series versions of Luke Skywalker. Okay. But I'll be honest with you, in the same way that Legends pulled me back in with the Uncanny X-Men 275 figures. Yeah. The Ewoks and the Return of the Jedi re-release stuff, when that stuff came out a few years ago, I was like, if they do Wicket, I'll buy in, but they didn't for some strange reason. And then when they revealed that, I was like, well, I guess I'm getting Ewoks. And then I was like, well, I'll probably get a couple speeder bikes, and then I'll probably get, the Endor, outfits for Han and Leia, and then I'll probably get Chewbacca and see through so.
So you're falling into the abyss again. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Eventually, it sounds like
because that's
it's gotten more robust. It sounds
that's
like.
Why I kind of stay away. I know that if I really did, I would have a problem. But I can look at them and appreciate them from afar. Mm-hmm. I have to, because most of that emotional connection that I had to those kind of like Return of the Jedi figures or Empire Strikes Back figures, I kind of let those go. When I let those go, it was there was some relief there. So it was less clutter, because it was like 15 boxes in my garage.
Ooh. Okay.
So this is blurred out.
Anybody else? Yeah.
But this top shelf behind me is 75% Star Wars.
Okay.
And that's 12 feet of shelving. Wow.
Hasbro what are they, Black Series or
it's mostly Black Series. I jumped in immediately. Upstairs in my wife's office is still the first release Luke Skywalker, the figure 1 of the line, still in box. So, she, even though she's the bigger Star Wars fan, I'm the collector, so this has happened, and I have boxes in the garage.
Yeah, that's why I was scratching my head a little bit. Okay. But is it yours, or is it hers?
This is mine. This is my. I am a Star Wars fan. I say she's the bigger fan, but I'm not. Because I went through a bad lightsaber building phase. Where I think I built at least 4 or 5 lightsabers.
Nice.
But Black Series, they're chasing me off with the price increases and just kind of not a lot of growth. But, I made sure to get the entire Rebels crew when they came out. Mm-hmm. I have every version of Ahsoka I can get my hands on. Mm-hmm. We own all of 2 Hot Toys in this house, and it's Force Awakens Rey and Clone Wars Ahsoka from the last season. So, there are characters I will chase the end of days. I was thinking today, I'm kind of out on Star Wars. And then I'm like, oh, but Ahsoka's coming out, so I'm going to need everything.
Yeah. Well, as we'll get into, there's a lot more coming out, so be careful. How about you, John?
I just got a handful. I knew if I went down that rabbit hole, I probably wouldn't get out. But I have a few Mandalorian figures, kind of like Adam. I kind of once the show came out, I kind of said, I gotta get that figure. I gotta get that figure, Mm-hmm. And my favorite though is the deluxe Mando hot toy with Grogu, and then the one I'm waiting for is the Book of Boba Fett version that should be coming out this year. So I already got my plan just to have both those side by side. I think. That's just gonna. I can't wait to get that Boba Fett figure.
Oh, so it's the Book of Boba Fett figure.
Yes. I actually canceled the pre-order that I had on the Mando season 2 Boba Fett because I was fine with that, but then once they came out with like the more kind of, not the baggy pants and kind of like the more streamlined version, like that's it. That's
the one you wanted.
That's that look right there. That's perfect. Just stay with that. But no, as far as 6-inch smaller scale, I mean, yeah, I have a few. I probably will get a Bo-Katan just because she's on this season. She's just been like front and center. It's like I got to get her now. It's like before I was like, okay, that's I can do without it, but now it's like I got to get her now.
It's so funny how that works.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because I was perfectly fine, and then because he's just been showing up and Katie Sackhoff's been killing it, and it's just like, yes, now I got to get a Bo-Katan figure and do some toy photography with them. So, and then I'm been thinking about getting more into the more like figure arts and Mayfex maybe, as far as getting more definitive or I guess the I guess better, I guess you could say, or just more expensive, obviously. But yeah, I've been looking at those like, should I pull the trigger on them?
You'll like the articulation a lot better.
Yeah, and that's the one.
There's something about the way those joints move, the way they hold. It is 1,000 times different.
Yeah, and right now it's just a matter of, do I go Mayfex or do I go with figure art? So that's kind of like my decision right now. But I'm still kind of, I've been looking around, checking pricing on Mando and on Boba Fett, and now I think they're coming out with a Bo-Katan Mayfex or figure arts. Well, one of those.
Mayfex.
Yeah, Mayfex. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm standing right now, mainly with the Mandalorian kind of side of the figures. So
got it. How about you, Allison?
I had gotten out of Star Wars other than Leia and Amidala, but it's not like we really ever get Padme toys. Thanks, Hasbro. So I've got we've gotten a couple Jedi. We have the Ewok Village Leia that came out in Black Series, and I have like the ceremonial Leia that they did. But I have sort of found myself slowly but surely getting into the retro line.
Okay.
That's pretty much what I had been buying was things like Stan Solo and Trash Compactor Customs online. Just buying sort of the retro themes stuff anyway. So it's, it's funny. I was talking to somebody about it the other day. I've been in the game since like 1978. It's really at this point where it's like I've pretty much gotten every character I want. It's now just getting sort of definitive versions of my, like I pick up vintage collection of like the first 21 and then Random Empire. Like I was excited when we got a vintage collection Lobot because he was one of my favorite characters as a kid because puffy sleeves. And he and Leia went on all these adventures in the little cloud car. And as a kid, other than Leia,
canon.
Yeah, exactly. We were all writing fanfic. That's why every time someone trots out Mary Sue, I'm just like, well, when you were in 5th grade with your Boba Fett action figure, and you still want us to treat that as canon, I'm just saying, Carl. So yeah, but I do, like the vintage collection, like every so often they'll do a figure and I'm like, I've got to have it. And then we get like 30 Luke and like his Black Jedi outfit. And I'm just like, I have a good one. I don't need, there's a new one with the skirt, but no Grogu, even though it's the Grogu training one. And I'm like, come on, Hasbro, you've gotten a little lazy here. So I start veering too far into grumpy, angry, sad comment fan. If I don't just stick to like Leia and droids and the stuff that like I feel that connection to like how I felt as a kid when you would go into like because there wasn't the internet, thank God. But like when you would go into a store and they would get new figures, like it was a huge deal. My brother was born like right before Empire Strikes Back came out, like in April. And while he was being born, they of course had to distract me because I was 6 and very active. So we went across the street to the, it was in Temple, Texas, and there's a mall right across the street. And they had just got the first wave of Empire Strikes Back figures, and that was my best friend Leia. There was no movie out though. I didn't know what the heck. All I knew is there was a Leia in red with the pink cape, and it was awesome. And then the hospital sucked that much less. So it's like I try to sort of focus what I buy now on the things that take me to those places in childhood where it was like you got that childhood wonder, that happiness, because you know, like the world's a little dark these days. So it's like I've tried really with my collecting everything, but especially Star Wars, to really focus on the things that can get me back to those moments that are, to me, the whole reason we collect. Like it's all about trying
if it doesn't bring you joy, why are you doing it?
Yeah, exactly. And yes, I
think we've too many of us in this kind of thing. At some point we start forgetting that, and we're more interested in that pursuit, but we forget about having fun or getting and eliciting that joy from what we're doing.
Yeah, well, it's tied into Star Wars because they're the first toy line where it was like collect them all. So it's like it's hardwired for a lot of us with Star Wars. You have to have them all.
Yeah.
So once I broke that,
I had it all and sold it all. So
all right,
I'm pretty good now.
once I broke that, for me, broke during Attack of the Clones, when it was like, what is happening with like this Padme, where it's like she's screaming and her arms sideways, and she can only do like a 90s comic like broken back pose, and it's like, this stinks. And I had just moved to Oregon, so it was like money was a little tight.
Right.
You know, the .com severance didn't last as long as I thought it would. But yeah, so it's at that point it started breaking for me, where I went to, well, I don't need all these sort of action feature Star Wars figures. I just want a definitive version. And then it just sort of evolved from that, where it was like, I'm gonna stick to the droids and Leia and Padme, and anytime I get a Cantina alien that I think is cool, and you know, are the original 21. I'm still waiting Hasbro for a proper Death Squad commander figure, like on the vintage card. Not an Imperial guy. It's like gray uniform, half a bowling ball hat.
Yeah. With the proper name, Death Squad Commander. So fascinating.
Well, that was my first figure because you couldn't find anyone. He was probably the first finger quote peg warmer. It was just he was the last one chosen, and it's like, so my first figure was the Death Squad Commander of the Jawa and the Tusken Raider, and then for Christmas I got everyone else because my mom thought the early bird thing was a scam. So like, you'll never get those figures, and then all the kids got those figures. Mother.
I am not actively buying Star Wars. There are too many Mythic Legions, Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, Masters of the Universe, and those other things right now that, aside from Masters of the Universe, which I named, they're brand new IP, and that's for whatever reason where my brain is at right now, getting excited about. However, there's a significant collection of plastic bricks, and sometimes I will feel the draw, even now that I'm collecting action figures, to buy a Lego Star Wars thing. But generally it's been my kids. So the Force is strong in my family, and there's a bunch of older folk here right now, as well as the chat. And I'll get to the chat in a little bit. But I do want to say that like the Force truly is alive and well in young people, as it's, according to the creator, has been the design all the time, right? And so I just wanted to share, if this is redundant for you because you saw me hanging out with Kayla the other night, it's okay. It's a Star Wars celebration. These are my children making droids. God, has it been only a week? Last week? Wow. Last week at Batu West at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Check this out.
How'd you do that?
So yeah, they built droids, and like, oops, these are things that like I would have just. I don't know what I would have done if these things existed when I was a kid. They're like interactive. They come with their controllers, right? And you can. I don't even know if this is the right controller. Oh, here you go. Sorry. This is the BB unit. That's the youngest one, and then this is the R unit. This is my oldest, who's turning 12, and he's clearly got a gothic thing going on. But they move, they make noises, they shoot if you get little blasters, right? These things, they have lights.
You get any personality chips?
They have personality chips. This one is a first order scoundrel, and then the BB unit is a first or has a first order chip. And so the sculpts on these, like, we're all toy people, right? I'm just, I kind of pushed it away for a while. We're lucky enough to be able to go to the parks because we have someone in our family who hooks us up with tickets every year. And we just sort of like held them off on this whole thing because it's like, what's going to happen? It's going to sit there. And even I, as the Star Wars, fan who loves the toys, wasn't, hey, yeah, I think you should have this thing, right? There was none of that. Bring it home so I can play with it. I was just kind of like, yeah, let's just wait. And then I did this thing. My mom was like, no, they're going to get this. I'm going to get this for them. Here's the money. Okay. So we do the appointment, and they're doing it. I'm sitting here watching it. And as a dad, I am just sort of, oh, there he is. He's turning on. They respond to each other. This one turned on when I put the other one close to him because I guess he doesn't like him. Like it's amazing. And so now, I'm like, what was I waiting on? Why did I? These are really, really good toys. Like, as far as like the sculpts on them, and you can go there. We talk about pop and swap all the time, right?
Yeah.
With the Mythic Legions, like it's literally like a conveyor belt of droid parts, and the kids just sit there and they're just like, I'll take this one and mix them up and then put them on your tray. They go to a station and they build them, and it's this whole experience.
Yeah.
And that is a thing that exists now, right? If I he's just gonna like go off as droids do. Anyway, I don't know. Has anybody here been able to check out this thing that they're calling Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at some theme park place?
No.
In this galaxy?
No.
Okay.
I would love to go. I like when they announced the immersive hotel. I was kids, you can come if you want. I will be going. But I mean, it's cost prohibitive. I mean, I'm in Canada, so I got to like pay to get there. And then it's like thousands of dollars to sort of do that. And then I know that if I get there, I'm not going to get there again. So I would do the droids. I would do the lightsabers. We'd be in like Jedi robes. Like it would be the full. So I know that I couldn't do that on a budget. Like I couldn't do the like, well, we'll just go and we'll do the rides and then we'll leave. I know myself too well, and it would never happen that way.
I can tell my wife we need $4,000 in our pocket before we go.
Yeah.
To the park, right? Not to the hotel thing that Adam mentioned.
No, that you couldn't afford the hotel
that
on
doesn't
$4,000.
exist. Yeah, in my brain, that thing doesn't exist.
No.
Yeah. Even though now apparently it's not doing so well. They're not getting reservations, so who knows
It's
what
too
price
expensive.
To stay. Yeah, we'll sort of see if they'll hold it. But okay, so folks haven't been. And I'm also, as I mentioned, like when we go to Disney parks here in the United States, if we're not paying for it, the ticket. So there's a level of stress that I acknowledge is very different. So our relationship to that place is very different from most people. So I could fully, I get it. When you walk around there, you see people, you see people walking around with like 2 lightsabers, a droid in hand, right?
Mickey ears.
They paid for their Mickey ears, robes that you buy at the parks, and these things you're just adding it in your brain. My kid, my youngest, is like, Baba, that's like $500. Like, I know, right? I know. And so, but again, if it's maybe a once in a lifetime chance, or like not something that you can do regularly, I get it. People are like, I'm going there. This might be the only time. And there's something about that whole Star Wars experience that I can see just sort of pushes us. We heard it. Like, folks are like, no, I don't really collect Star Wars much anymore, but I'm starting to do this, and then kind of into this, and I'm looking at this, right? It's, yeah. Anyways, Disney knows what they have. Lucasfilm knows what they have, and they're going to push it. With that, I was going to try and pull up some photos, but that's fine. It's everything you've probably heard, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And the only point that I wanted to make is that we're living in a time when a movie came out in 1977, and as you pointed out, Allison, after 83, we didn't know if it was ever sort of coming back. And then it did. Fast forward, now you can go to a place and walk around, and like you can have the Millennium Falcon behind you like it's real. You can have the real Kylo Ren, no offense, Chris. And I say the real Kylo Ren, but it's a cast member out there walking around, talking to you, like with pre-cued voices, like just yelling at you, berating you, whatever. And it's amazing to me that like young kids are still like in awe of it, right? Is it amazing, or are kids doing it?
It shouldn't be amazing. It shouldn't be. You have to think about this. It's still holding on to us, and we're in our 40s.
Yeah.
I mean,
like I said, it's.
I am 39, sir. How dare you?
Okay, fine. Whatever.
You're right. You're right. It definitely has its own sort of intrinsic, like, it is an amazing thing. It absolutely is.
Universality to it. That's why you see it in other countries, and it plays there well too.
Yeah.
There's themes that you can see everywhere that apply to it.
Okay. It does. You're right. And we'll get to the celebration stuff in a second. I think that's where I want to like maybe get a little less celebratory with it, in that since Star Wars was purchased as an IP for a couple of, was it 4.5 or so?
It's the deficit of several countries combined.
Yeah. But it really was pennies on the dollar, let's be honest, for what they're getting back in return.
Well, sure. But when that was purchased, since then, there's been celebrating, but there's been a lot of hating too. And as each new thing comes out, it seems like it seems like
Did Chris become Porkins? Is that where we're at?
No, how dare you? How dare you?
It's the beard.
Oh, the beard. The beard makes me Porkins.
You know how to celebrate, man.
That's the same gingery blondish sandy.
Fair.
My helmet is off to you, sir. It just seems that as we move forward, I do wonder how monolithic does it continue to be as people, it feels like sometimes people start to chip away at it a little bit, and we get to this sort of like, I don't know, split fan base, or like,
We had our discussion. I think the key is with any discussion. Yeah. You have to be civil about it. Yeah, you can disagree that you don't like it. You don't like it, you don't support it, then don't.
I'm with you on that. My point is, not everyone thinks like you do.
I know, but you don't own the property. Well, it wasn't made just for you.
No, I understand that.
You internalize it as you.
The problem, I guess what I'm saying, as you know this, is that there are folks who function with that exact mindset and attack. And to be fair, because I'm going to try and find an elegant way to bring this up, but it's like, there are people who are genuinely like, I don't like that new thing because I like the old thing, or I expect Star Wars to be XYZ, and that's not it, and I don't like it. So there's that. But of course, as Allison alluded to, we're living in kind of darker times, and it seems like more and more people are acting out on some of their sort of like darker tendencies. and it seems like clearly more and more the dark side is out there. And we have people attacking movies before they even came out. So before The Force Awakens even came out and we saw that first shot in that trailer, there was a boycott because people saw the first face that they saw was a black face, and it was a black stormtrooper. And like that was actually people's vocalized reasons for boycotting it. And so I know this is like celebration, but I want to be real as an example. And since then we've seen actors like, you know, the first Vietnamese like
just that this goes back to
get
look at
chased.
Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best.
Sure.
What happened to them?
Exactly. Yeah. So
they got eviscerated.
Right. So my point here is
doing a job.
My point is we're here celebrating, right? And there are also people who are sort of seemingly consistently doing the opposite of celebration.
Yeah.
And so I wonder how universal it feels. And this is not just true of Star Wars in my mind. I also wonder about Marvel, and I wonder about a lot of these things that I think, for example, Disney bought thinking that, oh, these are what they would call evergreen properties that everyone will always love. And they are. But anyway, so I just want to frame it and then I'll release it. So I do wonder how Star Wars can sort of survive. Survive probably isn't the word, but maybe like exist in the same sort of way where we're saying like, oh my God, it truly is this universal huge thing, as people start to chip away at it, as it more and more has other competition, like things like the MCU and eventually DC and other things. Super Mario Brothers, if you didn't see that, that's probably something that's going to chip away at people's attention. So I'm just sort of wondering, how does Star Wars exist in this new age when it's split because of the reasons I've already shared? Not to mention there's stuff on Disney Plus that are shows, there's comics, there's books, there's films, right? So it's kind of in many different forms. I'm just curious, do we see it sort of continuing to be the big universal monolithic we love Star Wars period, or is, well, I love the quote unquote Mandoverse, well, I love the prequels, well, I love the sequels?
And that's okay. Love what you
but
love.
Sure, just want to. I know there's a lot of that. What do you go?
Well, one, I have sort of I literally can't hear with this.
You love.
Go for it.
So this is.
Yeah, my internet.
As the oldest, I'm probably the oldest person here. So as someone older, I with Force Awakens, I started notice with the exact comments you mentioned, but it did sort of trace back to the Phantom Menace and sort of the reaction to that. So part of what has tempered it for me is everyone who was a little kid who went to the prequels are in their adults now, and they all, like, I have a friend who was like 7 or 8 when she went and saw the first, Phantom Menace when it came out. So she's like 30 now. But she loves the prequels. She doesn't like the new movies. They're not her that's not my Star Wars. But it's the same thing where there's certain people, boomers and Gen Xers, who are like, the prequels aren't my thing. That's not my Star Wars. And I think we're seeing a lot of that because my niece really responded to the sequels. She loved Rey. She loved Rose. She really related to them. My brother tried to show her the original trilogy, and she didn't quite. I think she was a little sort of weirded out by, Leia's the only woman in it, and that's not a world she's used to existing.
Well, maybe that's part of what it is. It reinvents itself every so often.
Yeah, and I think
a little bit. There's little nudges.
Sure, let's hear it first. Let's hear it before.
And I think a lot of what it is, and I even find myself not responding as well to stuff that's like The Mandalorian's okay, but I don't like. Don't hate me, internet. I don't really care for Baby Yoda. I think I have the same reaction to him that people had to the Ewoks who thought they were too cutesy. But I loved the Ewoks, but I was the right age for the Ewoks. So I think part of what it is for us, we have a very specific relationship to Star Wars because of our age, the time it came out, and what our Star Wars is. We've got the millennials who have a really specific relationship to the prequel trilogy
Sure.
because of who they are in the time. And it's the same thing. I think the differences that I've witnessed is obviously we're old. You as well, Chris, you're old. 39 is just is death breath from 40. And then 50 is right around the corner, believe me.
For the record, this man right here is old. Okay, keep going.
But also, and this is dark and morbid, I apologize, but we're all dying.
Sure.
We're a lot closer to it now than we were
scientifically accurate.
And the sequel trilogy had the unfortunateness of being set sort of in a time frame that has to interact with us because of the age of Harrison and Carrie and Mark Hamill.
Right.
You know, we lost Carrie in the middle of that. You know, and people were like, she's gone too soon, but she was nearly 60. And like, not to age shame, but it's like our life expectancy is different now than it was even 20 years ago.
Sure.
Although it seems like she's gone too soon to us. Like when she was not even all right, when she was doing the first Star Wars movies, if you made it past 60, you were old. So I think a lot of what is happening is a lot of the boomers and the Gen Xers who loved Star Wars, we're at a point where our mortality is smacking us right in the face, especially if you look at other things happening in the world, you know, over the last few years. I think it's really easy to get caught up in fear of that and sort of focus it on whether there's a black stormtrooper or not, because that makes some people uneasy and makes them insecure for reasons they don't quite know. There are some people really uncomfortable with like anyone that's not like a cis-het white man having any sort of potency in a story. Yeah, that's the right word for
I was gonna say that's a word.
Polite way of trying to like get a point across.
Agency.
The agency, you know, and it's scary. Like we're all sort of facing our imminent deaths more so lately. And I think it's a lot easier to get bent out of shape over a space opera that we adored as children and meant the world to us than it is to have those tough conversations with ourselves and sort of sit back and say, you know, like anytime Harrison Ford trends on Twitter, we all collectively shit our pants and lose our shit. Like both, we're, you know,
wondering,
like, we're like, God, please, no, not Harrison. And same last time Mark Hamill like trended, I was like, I just can't look for 3 days. I'm off Twitter. I can't do it, guys. Can't do that to me. So I think a lot of it is that, and we're not in a culture where we're taught to revere our elders. You know, like women age, and it's like if they dare to do Botox, it's like, oh my God, how dare you fuck up? But then again, how dare you look old and rumpled, you old bag? And we do it to a lesser degree to men, but it's still there. It's like, you know, why do all these old men date these young women? It's not because they're actually attracted to each other. One of them needs the old man's money and the old man wants to feel younger. So it's like, we're just not good with age. And I think a lot of what we're seeing with Star Wars comes from that fear. We're getting older. We're all going to die soon. Sooner now than it was before, you know, like.
And back to life day, yes.
Yeah, right, back to life. I think a lot of it is that. We're just, most people don't do as much therapy as I do. So aren't in touch with that stuff. And I think this is, you know, like all of the friends I know personally who lose their shit over the sequel movies, and like everyone I have met who hates the character of Rose, if you question them enough, they have a really weird view of the way Asian women are supposed to act in the world. And it's something that they're not inclined to investigate. And so it's like, I try to like not, I just, anytime I see a man in a fedora who has Star Wars opinions, I get out of the way and let them go. Because I don't need that in my life. But I think that's what a lot of it is. It's a lot easier to get mad at someone online and tell them they're stupid and their opinion is wrong than it is to take that step back and go, Luke, Leia, and Han kind of have to die for this series to continue, because we also don't want to recast them, and we don't want the fake, like the computer generated faces weirds us out. Something has to happen, and better they get heroic deaths in a movie than like some off-screen nonsense. So that's sort of my grand theory. I'd be happy if I'm wrong, and it's just the answer is people are just assholes. So I'm done.
Well, if not a fedora, if they had that hat on, would you listen to them more?
I am more inclined to listen to somebody who is in gear. Yeah.
Sorry, and
Imperial uniform.
And I know I kind of led us here, but I'm curious to hear other folks. And then we'll move on. But curious, you were trying to say something. Yeah, go for it, Chris.
I was gonna say 39-year-old, the young kid in the crowd.
That kid,
young one.
Don't get cocky, kid.
I love the sequel movies. I didn't love the prequels. I even remember, because I was in middle school, kind of walking out of the Phantom Menace and going, well, it's okay as Obi-Wan's movie. But my wife and I, we saw the Force Awakens 3 times that first week. This is my fandom I'm trying to talk about, but I want to at least state, for my wife, there's always been strong female characters in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But she was so pumped that there was a female Jedi protagonist. Mm-hmm. And that was incredible. And that meant the world to her. And that's why, again, one of the 2 hot toys is Rey from The Force Awakens. I bought her for one of our anniversaries. But, and to me, my favorite of the new movies is The Last Jedi. I unironically have a giant silk print of the movie poster on my wall because the art direction is just incredible. I don't know what to tell you. And I love that the heroes fucked up the whole movie. They came up with the most Star Wars-y plan possible, and it fell on its face. But the moral of the story was anyone could be the hero. Anyone could be a Force user, could be a Jedi, be it the kid sweeping out the stables. I loved it. But, a good chunk of us are on a Discord where if you dare say anything about the sequels, you're going to get buried for at least 30 minutes. Which is unfortunate, but I think the thing people need to realize is, like Allison said, we're getting closer to death, so it's not necessarily for us anymore. I have nieces and nephews who are 10 and under who saw the prequels first. They saw them in universe chronological order, and so when they hit the original trilogy, they were bored to death. Because you go from flipping around and blasts and big invasions, and the story gets real small in Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, but they love the new movies, and I love the side stories, and I think we're gonna lose people, and that's fine, because Star Wars, when I was a kid, like I said, it wasn't cool. There weren't toys. It was on the USA Network, and it survived, and we're here, and we're gonna lose people again.
Yeah.
And I think it will still be fine.
You cannot make everyone happy.
No, of course.
No matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you will never, ever make everyone happy. Now, as fans, we have a certain feeling of entitlement. I hate that word, but it's true. Those of us that have been with this thing for 40 plus years, some of us get pretty bad, including myself. You feel that connection to those characters. And when you feel that connection lost, which is kind of where I was during the sequel trilogies, I felt like my connection to those main characters was kind of lost. I know it was passing the torch, but I didn't dislike the movies. Mm-hmm. Not to the point where I was going to go review bomb some movie because I didn't like this or that. And I think that's ridiculous. It's absurd. Because I liked Rey. I liked her as a character. There was something interesting there. Now, they did her a disservice in the third movie by doing what they did, but it would have been okay if she was just a nobody. Why did she have to be connected?
Sure.
I would have been okay with that. That would have made more sense. So it's one of those things that I think was lost along the way, because it kind of, if you really think about it, if they'd made her a nobody, it would tie directly into Anakin, because he was a nobody. He was a slave.
Chosen
would have been a very
slave.
close parallel there.
Yeah.
One was the end of it, and the other one was the rise of it. So if you think about it that way, it would have made better sense. But, I'm not in the writer's room. So.
Does anybody here have any sort of like really strong feelings to add to this, or should we move on to somewhere else?
Well, I think it's funny. You mentioned the Galaxy's Edge, and all I could think about was like, that's so amazing. But and just like Payne was talking about how we and everyone, we've had those dark periods where there was no Star Wars and it survived. It kind of carried on. Because I remember all I wanted to do, growing up, was go to Star Tours at MGM. Like that was the only thing that you could do as far as any kind of theme park ride or anything, was go to that, that one little ride where you can walk through there and you can see C-3PO, and that was it.
That was a big deal, yeah.
Yeah, and now you have like a giant theme park, and I mean, it's gonna be fine. I mean, Star Wars is always gonna be around, but it's funny, like my nieces and nephews, especially my nephew, because he never seen any of the movies. He hasn't seen a single movie, but he's got tons and tons of Legos. And he'll ask me about it. Like, he'll say, Uncle John, this, what's this guy from? It's, and I'll show him clips on YouTube, just from The Mandalorian or from the sequel trilogy. He's like, oh, wow. He gets all kind of excited. And then, I think, gradually, I think I am probably going to sit him down and have him watch, a few of them, knowing that I probably can't even show him the original. Because I think his, him being 7 years old, going on 8, his attention span just will not, I don't think it's going to work for him. I think those movies are just, I think at this point, they're just for a certain, our generation. And I think even the prequel trilogy, I don't think he would, it would grab his attention. I would think mainly the shows, and then the sequel trilogy, I think is what he would really gravitate towards. But honestly, yeah, I think you're always going to have these people, all these groups and fans, or fans that have specific feelings around things, or not want it to be a certain way. Like me, I was completely shell shocked by the prequel trilogy. Like, I was like, wow, like, what did I just watch when it was all said and done? And it was a different time in my life. I was in high school, I was a teenager, and I was expecting it to be a certain way. And when they didn't turn out that, I was like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't my cup of tea. But it's like, I know, lots of kids younger than me, like especially my niece, she loved it at that time. And and now with the sequel trilogy, the problem I have with this, the main thing I had with the sequel trilogy was the fact that there was there was a stop and start. You had to start it with J.J. Abrams. He had a certain idea of how it was going to go, and then he, okay, he's going to hand it off, and then he goes a different direction. And fans didn't like that, so let's move it back over here. And it was like there was no even flow story from start to finish for that trilogy, at least from the way I looked at it. And that to me, say what you want about the prequels, George wrote, he had his hands in the whole thing, so that was like his story from start to finish, all 3 movies. Regardless of what you want to say, that was a cohesive story of what he wanted to tell, from Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. Secret Trilogy, not so much, but again, there were a lot of good characters in there, a lot of good stories that you could have, told. But again, I mean, kind of like you want to bring up, Rick. I mean, maybe we'll see some of that with the new stuff they have coming out now. Again, I think it's gonna be fine. And like Payne said, I mean, you're not gonna please everyone. There's always gonna be, the groups out there that aren't gonna be happy. But
sure,
yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Well, okay, so then I will move us on, but I will say two quick things to kind of wrap up. I hear you on the notion that it's young people who find it at the right age seem to, I use the word universally super loosely, but universally gravitate to it and embrace it. I think the difference in 1977 was that there wasn't an older generation that had a Star Wars that was critical of the Star Wars that was around at the time. So it's really we're gonna have to like find ways to consistently buffer against the sort of like negative people who are frustrated. Okay, go on that point. You want quick?
Well, yeah. I mean, I hope this sound isn't terrible out of this thing, but like we've all kind of suggested, like Star Wars, always has been for kids, essentially.
Yeah.
So the difference is kids change, and so they format the most recent offering to sort of what is popular at the time,
right?
With the exception being sort of the originals, because there wasn't, there was some things stolen from here and there.
Flash forwarded,
in a mix that was unique and sort of blew everybody away, right?
Yeah.
And I have young kids. I got a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 11-month-old. My 7-year-old, my 3-year-old love all the current sort of Star Wars stuff that's for kids, that's for their age bracket, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was I supposed to know that watching Jedi Temple Challenge would pay off in such a big way?
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the show for what it was. And my kid was like, how can I get on there? Can I learn how to be a Jedi? And I was like, well, that's not quite how it works. These aren't just random kids. We don't live near where they're making the show. But then there's Galaxy of Adventures. There's a new like Padawan, like cartoon for like little kids coming out.
Yeah.
And I think what we fixate on, the sequel trilogy, right? And people are like losing it, like, oh, this isn't Star Wars that I want. And it's like, they made over $1 billion. So it worked. I mean, it did what it was supposed to. If you don't like it, that's fine. Maybe the next thing will work for you. Maybe it won't. If it's all for kids and then we still get Andor, and you're still complaining, it's sort of like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like it can't, and if Star Wars just aged out with the people that saw it in the theater in 1977, it would be dead and gone already.
Right.
Let's be realistic. Like it has to adapt. It has to change. It has to, be woke or whatever you want to say. Like if it does, whatever term you want to throw at it to say that it is wrong or whatever, it is what it is. They're gonna appeal to the mass market. Star Wars is a mass market property, and
it's Baskin Robbins. It's 31 flavors.
Well, let me segue from there actually. So we established sort of like one, we do have to develop this mindset that seems like everybody here has embraced, and the notion that it's okay for us to get Star Wars that we don't necessarily like, and that we had ours, right? Because clearly there are some people who don't subscribe to that mindset. They're like, if I can't get what I want, then I'm going to burn it all down. There are some of that. We know that. And they have a tool called the internet that exists. So that's fine. The other piece of it, though, is it is a mass product, and it is a mass product not owned by the creator and this thing that he created anymore. It's owned by one of the largest corporations on the planet who bought it with the intent of it being evergreen, and they wanted to make money forever. So we mentioned Hasbro today, and there's been all sorts of like, again, here's the celebration, but we're talking about this serious stuff because we're old. Where I was wondering, my wondering is because I'm an adult and kind of understand certain things. At what point do they say, you know what, it's kind of not worth the headache anymore if it's not going to make a certain level of money? And that's not to be answered, because the answer, just because of time, and I do want to kind of try and end it at the time we said, here's the answer. Okay. The answer is, at this point, it doesn't matter what Brick wants to guess or wonder about, because the answer is that corporation owns it right now, and they're doing anything and everything they can while they have it and while they can make money with it. Right. So I would love to show this. My computer is being a little bit weird, and I don't know if I'm just taxing it, which is really strange to me. But I don't know if this is going to work.
I want to take this off, but I just wanted to mention that my wife also allows me to have this on our display in our living room.
Sure, on display in the room, right, Adam? Sure.
Okay, well, this is not responding, so I know what I need to do, but I'll talk through it. Okay, so how many of you have been following the news?
You know what you need to do, but you don't.
Okay.
What's the quote?
What was that?
He has the strength.
Oh, Kylo.
I don't know if I have the strength. Is that what it is?
I know what I need to do, but I don't. Oh, Kylo. Yeah.
So let's get into what happened, because like I said, I didn't watch it.
And we've got limited time-ish. We'll see how it goes, because I don't want to make myself a liar, but I'm always a liar when it comes to time. Okay, so what happened? The first thing that sort of came out, and I'm going to go through these pretty quickly and then we'll do little pauses here and there. The first thing that is announced is something that the first thing that was detailed, because it's been announced for a while, is something that we've been knowing about. Sorry, this is hating me, and I'm just going to force
talk about it.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. The first thing is Ahsoka, right? The Ahsoka live action TV show. And it looks fun. It's all the things that I think people did, and probably more than you might assume if you just sort of heard, oh yeah, they brought out Ahsoka. Because what they also brought out, and I heard Allison bring up the books, the phrase "heir to the Empire" is in the trailer.
What?
In reference to one Mithran Nuruodo, or AKA Thrawn.
Thrawn, yeah.
Ahsoka says something to the effect that, I hear that Thrawn, blah, 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 is being talked about as the heir to the Empire. And you see the back of Thrawn's head, and they have in fact named, they've finally committed to saying, yes, the voice of Thrawn in the Rebels cartoon, Lars Mikkelsen, is now going to be the actor. And he's an amazing actor, just like the rest of the Force is strong in that family. And so he is now our Thrawn, and it, for all intent and purpose, it really is an attempt to bring the legend that is Heir to the Empire into canon in some way, shape, or form. And to that end, oh God, and I'll just talk, but there's the title treatment. I don't think we're going to get much else. There is a trailer that is gorgeous. And it starts off with Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka in a Jedi temple, taking her dual sabers out, cutting a circle in the floor, and falling through into a room, much like she did several times, yes, in animation. And so, just to start there, on the one hand, Star Wars is for kids. On the other hand, we're going to a cartoon that a lot of us loved, and now we're bringing it into a live action series. So, and I think kids will still like it. My kids are absolutely into it. But anyways,
the thing about Filoni is he knows how to get all of us, at least partially.
Yes.
He knows how to give us the tease. He knows how to kind of bring in those characters. Now, we know that this is going to lead into something that you'll say in a minute anyway, but we know that all of these shows that have been showing up on Disney Plus are going to lead to something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that we just didn't know that it was going to be that.
And so, go for it.
I was just going to say,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was going to say,
looks like it's going to be a little bit sequel-y to Rebels, and let's not forget that is so for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all love it, but when they go looking for the Maloo runs, and they steal the TIE fighter, like,
and paint it multiple colors. Yeah,
you're right.
Right.
Adults are not the audience for that, but we loved it anyway.
Yes, and to that note, like this, it really is, as you can see, it's pretty much Rebels, right? So Chopper's there, and you'll see them in a little bit as we go through this. You'll see other folks pop up. So I'll kind of just quickly show. I will not show you this because it doesn't like me. But Hera's in it. We see her, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Sabine Wren. Did you say you do or you do not?
I enjoy her as an actress. She was a great huntress in Birds of Prey.
Yep. And in Scott Pilgrim. And who else? Sabine Wren is being played by, the name escapes me. Does anybody happen to know the name? I think I want to say she had an Australian accent. Anyway, she was in a couple of series for people much of a younger demographic than me. Ezra is seen in a hologram, right? And who else is seen? Is there anybody else seen from Rebels in this trailer? Chopper was not seen in the trailer, but he was there.
I mean,
I think Chopper's in the trailer.
Yeah.
Oh, is he in the actual trailer? Okay, and he was also there on stage.
Yeah, because he's in the Phantom with Hera.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You see the Phantom.
Yeah, we don't see Zeb, but we know he's around because he's been in Mandalorian. So
yep.
And there was a Mon Mothma sighting in the trailer.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. And I so want to show you this, Adam, but apparently I can't. So I don't know why.
Watched it if I wanted to.
I understand, but it wasn't just for you. It's also for me because visually, it's gorgeous. It's very volumey, but it's also early in the process. So the big takeaway is it's Rebels, but it's Rebels being somehow continued and mixed into Heir to the Empire in some way, shape, or form, because there are also Force users all throughout this thing. There's two people who wield red-ish lightsabers, and I say red-ish because they do seem a little bit pulled back in tone, maybe a little bit more on the orange side.
It's decidedly orange. I promise you.
Blood orange is the term being used.
Yeah,
he's made it bleed. He just hasn't made it bleed all the way yet. So he's going that direction.
And he being, I don't know if you ever saw Rome, Titus Pullo, what is it? Ray Stevenson, aka he was the Punisher in one incarnation, Punisher War Journal. Anyway, so he is some sort of force wielding, robe wearing, but sometimes with armor and robe wearing, very Clone Wars-y looking. Force user with an orange lightsaber, and he seems to have an apprentice, maybe, or there's another character.
Could it be Inquisitor related?
Well, this will be post.
We won't know.
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
So I think we are in the Mando timeline.
That's not post.
No, that's pre. Yeah, sorry. Go roll back. Yep. Yeah.
But if you really look at that, they're fighting in the space between worlds.
It's unclear. Like maybe they are.
It looks
maybe they
a
are.
lot like it.
Well, but I will say the temple on Morabon looked like that too.
It did. And really quickly, I don't know if you all caught this, but there's also like a full-on lighting rig on C-stands in the shot, in one of the shots too. That I didn't find. Dude from Screen Crush found, and it's pretty fun. This is just not working. But sorry, Force quit. What were we saying? Oh, so there's another Force user. It could be Inquisitors, because there is someone she fights that has two swords kind of in a single one long column kind of thing. There's a couple things going on. So in other words, go watch it, even though you said you didn't want to watch it. No, but maybe if you're intrigued enough, or if you don't want any spoilers, but there's a lot of stuff happening in this trailer.
I kind of, we were talking about, Star Wars and Marvel and all these massive properties that are essentially serialized, right? And it's I've gotten to the point where I know that I'm gonna watch it. So the trailer or the teaser or whatever just starts my brain creating headcanon. And Brick and Aaron, like, we had this conversation before, right? About like all canon is somebody's headcanon. I don't want to get ahead of Dave Filoni and then be like, oh, I thought they would do this. Like, I don't want to think they should or could or will do anything. I just want to watch it every week and be like, whoa, where are they going to go next?
I made the mistake before Rise of Skywalker of watching the entire Disney canon. And I, as soon as I knew Palpatine was back and I just watched Rebels and everything, I'm like, comes back, world between worlds. That's how he does it. That's the way this works. And the minute it didn't happen, the movie was wrecked. And it's not the filmmaker's fault, even though I still have problems. It was my headcanon for me that wrecked it.
for me, it was I already kind of when they said he was coming back, I knew it was cloning because that was a big part of Timothy Zahn's books, and also Dark Empire. So,
all right. Well, listen, it is 10:30, and I'm totally going to be a liar. We might go a little bit longer. I don't want to ignore the chat, especially folks who have sort of jumped in, even though I've fully ignored you. So I do want to acknowledge folks that have jumped in. Some folks have chimed in a little bit to sort of share when they dropped in. I always find this fascinating how people find it. Quip is here, and he got into Star Wars via the prequel trilogy and the Nintendo 64 games for Rogue Squadron and Pod Racers. Both were amazing games. Largo is here. 77 to 78 totally changed the sci-fi and action figure landscape. 100%. It changed Hollywood, period. Even if like everybody's attention shifted to some sort of sci-fi thing, and then every toy needed to have some kind of Star Wars or fantasy connection. Pop actors here tonight. I was born, or at least was at some point. I was born in the 90s. Sadly, I missed Star Wars 77, but I did like the Ewok movies when they first came out on TV. Wait, born in the 90s, the Ewok movies, I guess like after seeing them again later
probably
on TV,
when he
maybe?
saw them. He probably saw them on TV.
I was going to say, you have to see it because they were in the 80s.
Yeah.
85 and 86, I think.
Yeah.
I remember those, and I love those. Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor, they're so good.
I like the one with the witch, the weird, not a Sith witch, but like
in the castle.
We had to get rid of Sindel's brother though because he was annoying. No, just let the little girl in pink, like, and Wicket have adventure. Although it's weird when Wicket starts talking.
It is very off-putting. Yeah.
Anyway,
we've got Radical Toys here tonight. Again, maybe is still here, but I definitely was here for a moment. Just a quick shout out because you mentioned that so quickly and casually, and I wanted to make sure we saw it in text because Dan Solo is the ish.
I do just want to say maybe she learned the Ewok language. That's how it worked in my head.
That I'm gonna go with that because
she'd be exposed to that language, immersed in that language.
I had no issues with it in the Ewoks cartoon, so I'm
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, it's a much better movie now.
And just so you know, I have such an issue whenever like non-human aliens like automatically default to basic or English. Like when we got Hutts in the Clone Wars speaking English, sometimes with like a detective noir accent.
And that southern accent.
It would throw me off.
Off-putting.
Yeah. All right, let's see if I could. I'm gonna do something. What happens if I do this? And I do that. Do you don't even see a preview? Nah.
I just see files.
Yeah, I was trying to game the system. And
it's not gonna work. And when we're done, I'll tell you why and what you need to do next time.
Okay.
There's a bit of a trick to it.
There's a trick to it. Okay, cool. All right, this is what I'm going to do then. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I hope there isn't any weird feedback because this screen is here. And can you all see that? Can you see Ahsoka?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we'll do it this way then. All right.
And solo Bohemian Rhapsody, Ahsoka.
Yes, I'm just a poor Jedi. We got Tuca Cats up in this thing. Is that a Tuca Cat? That's a Tuca Cat, right? Yeah. We've got Sabine, right? First time seeing Sabine in live action.
With long hair.
With long hair, so time has passed.
But it still died, so she's consistent.
Dyed a different color, though, since last we saw her, correct?
I think that's the color. No, I think my Forces of Destiny doll has, like...
It's multicolored, yeah.
So we've got Ahsoka fighting someone wherever this Jedi thing is. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but on the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a hole. That's the hole she cut, I'm assuming. But she's fighting things that look like Magna droids, but painted different colors. We have the Phantom chasing some ship that is hauling something away.
It's like an escape pod.
We've got Hera. And I will never get over the are they called Montrals on Twi'leks, or are they No. Nerds. Whatever they're
Oh,
called.
this is where I fall apart. Don't.
Oh, her little I think they're called Lekus. Her little
Leku. Yes, sorry. Montrals are for the other for Ahsoka. But there's just from this angle, Leku always crack me up. Anyways, I'll keep moving.
right.
There's Chopper. There's Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera.
Hera, yeah.
Oh, I had these in here just because this wasn't the first time that we actually sort of saw a non-cartoon version, but we did get to see a CG version in Squadrons. And it's always sort of fascinating to me how they choose to cast these things, but whatever. Moving on, this is one of the dark side users, and this is presumably the Master. So I didn't know if, for those of you who've read Heir to the Empire, if this is like a Joris, however you pronounce that last name.
Seoboth.
Yeah, Seoboth. Yeah. Isn't it CBOATH though?
It's like got an apostrophe.
Right. So anyway, don't know, but if this is like a take on that, but the lightsaber game in this,
I have a feeling that's going to be a swerve.
Eventually,
we're all meant to think that it's going to be him, but I have a feeling it's going to be somebody that.
Oh yeah,
want it to be.
And I don't necessarily think it's him. I was wondering if there's like this kind of like, oh, well, legends are always kind of murky, right? But there was a Force user, not his different name, different origin, but just I'm trying to figure out if there's how much they're trying to chase.
With the beard and white hair, so there's a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge going on right there.
Well, and I would assume we're going to get some version of whoever the first Knight of Ren was in this.
Oh yeah.
Because at some point they're in some of the Marvel. The Marvel comics are actually good if you haven't read them. For the new ones. But there's a story in one of them where Kylo Ren meets
the Knights
of Ren, which starts his journey. But I would assume that at some point they're going to, because they've done nothing significant with them, and they're really, and the Knights of Ren to me are really exciting. So
did you see Allison, the Knights of Ren come back in the Crimson Reign?
I've got all of those sitting over there waiting for me to
just curious because they do come back. But sorry, you were going to say something else, whoever was speaking.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, with Knights of Ren, right? To me, they feel like Boba Fett used to feel. Like, I kind of don't want to know too much. Because then it kind of takes away... It takes away the griminess, the grittiness of them. Like, their ship with smoke coming out and their dirty boots when they're in the First Order ship, which is kind of the first time we see them. Yep. It's a little bit like Boba Fett before he speaks and before you realize like who he is and what he does, and the fact that you want some of that mystery. You want some of that, because I don't need every character to be fully fleshed out. I mean, maybe that's just me.
No. I hear you, but I was just going to point out that it's tricky because essentially it seems like this entire arc that we're getting in these current Disney Plus shows that are supposedly going to lead to a movie. Spoiler alert, Adam. That's the other piece of news. Is that they're actually are filling in blanks intentionally, whether it's events or characters. And so, not saying they're necessarily going to do the Knights of Ren thing, but just
that's what I mean. Like, if it serves a story, right? Like, if it furthers a narrative, then by all means, give me the backstory. But do I need an episode of a show or a whole story arc to explain who they are just for the sake of explaining them? Not at all. That's sort of what I'm saying.
Got it.
Agreed.
So if we just try to move through a little quicker, you'll see, clearly we're seeing the Lothal. We want to remind you of Rebels. And there is the shot that Allison was referring to. We see Mon Mothma, the New Republic Supreme Chancellor, if I remember from Aftermath, was her title. I'm not. No, it wasn't Supreme Chancellor. Sorry, but she was something. She chancellor, I guess. I don't know, but she's there. She's got her wig from Andor too. It seems like.
So this is pre-original trilogy, right? So
No,
this isn't New Republic.
This is now This is New Republic. If Rebels ended with a sort of epilogue that was after Return of the Jedi, and this picks up from there.
Okay. And they've stated that, or that's the assumption that
they've given a timeline. They released an official timeline that this is the New Republic era.
Okay.
And they're looking for Ezra and all of that.
So it's Mando era too.
Yes, because they have said that this Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, those two Mandalorian are all.
The Book of Boba Fett is also in that. They're grouped in this New Republic timeline, and it'll be captioned.
And it will end in the first feature film directed by Dave Filoni, live action.
On that note, I have to go.
Okay.
I will take my leave.
Yes, because I lied. I said we'd be done 12 minutes ago, but thank you so much for celebrating. Yeah. We finally got to the celebration part. Thank you so much for joining us, man. I appreciate you. All right. May the force be with you. This is
great
the way.
seeing you.
And with you.
There's Thrawn, right? And this is it. I do got to pause here for a second because this is Diana Lee Inosanto. Her father was a martial artist who studied with and taught kind of the situation with Bruce Lee, and was featured in Game of Death. I believe he did Eskrima. Filipino dude, Danny Inosanto, and she's Diana Lee Inosanto, and took her godfather's name, her Ninon, which was Bruce Lee. So she's. Do you remember her from Mando? She fought Mando. She was the magistrate Elsbeth.
She had the spear
on the planet where Ahsoka was.
Yep.
Yeah. I was gonna say she was in something else. Like when you're talking about her father and stuff, like that was news 2 years ago.
Yep. And she's back. She's a recurring character. She's the connection to Thrawn, presumably, because that's what she revealed.
And right, because Ahsoka was specifically hunting for Thrawn in that episode.
This is what Aaron was saying. What could potentially be the world between worlds, where they have lighting rigs from Hollywood.
Sure.
Unless that is some sort of,
I mean, they have lights in that universe, so maybe there is. Yeah,
you're right. It could be, just like Gene's guy.
Because I mean, this comes out soon, right?
August.
Yeah.
I mean, it's early. Things happen too. So, but who knows?
It's not a Starbucks cup. I could see it being in universe.
Sure.
Maybe it's the land speeder garage that they're in. And like those are safety lights so that you don't get dumped by some grungy huts.
You're right. All of this could be true.
There's a parking meter. See,
there was Gene's guy too, though. But yes, he could have been. Anyway,
they've got jeans in space, just no underwear.
But there's multiples, which makes me think that there is something.
Yeah,
there's a purpose to it.
Yeah.
And just when you watch it, it flashes by so fast too. So.
Quick note, Saber nerds are so pumped that he has a Suba on his lightsaber.
Right here?
Yeah. Oh, they are so excited.
Yeah, lightsabers typically have been the worst design of a sword. Kylo Ren's was like, it made more sense. But yes, as somebody that does kendo, I'm like, why do they not have any way to stop a blade from just slicing your hand off?
Plot.
Can't think too much because supposedly those things slice through anything, but
also they only go this far. And
here's Hera again with some homies. There it is. I thought I showed the full ignite.
Is that going to be the prince from the last Mando episode? Sorry, the Mon Cala.
Oh God, I don't know.
He's gonna be like now he's really pushing back against his family, and he's joined. He's a pilot now.
I don't know. He fully enlisted because the blue uniforms are New Republic official. Like, anyway, nerd. So this is what it is, right? There's a bunch of those photos in this, but that was the Ahsoka trailer. That was obviously not the only thing that came out. Any other sort of reactions or anything you all want to see me try to pull up here from this trailer?
I stand by my theory from the Discord that they may be just unaffiliated dark side users, not unlike a dark reflection of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be.
I also think... Oh, nope, never mind. I'm wrong. I was going to go... I think this might be a flashback to her stealing the Kyber crystals from the Inquisitor, but she clearly has her white lightsaber, so I'm lying.
This shot, though, I love. Anyway, just there's a lot of great things happening. We're limited on time, so I won't go into it. Any thoughts so far? I know because Adam, we were talking about like, oh, I haven't seen anything, so I'll give you my reactions. Any big reactions? Any big? Yeah.
I mean, I'm here for lightsaber battles. I know that there's a lot of people that kind of look at some of what we've got from Star Wars and been like, I'm so glad that we're not getting, Jedis fighting Sith anymore.
Yep.
But at some point you kind of go, but that's Star Wars. Like that's, I love Andor. I love Mandalorian. I love Jedi Temple Challenge. I love all of it. But like, I do want to get back to lightsaber battles sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I do want that sort of good versus evil, really black and white kind of thing. I know that with Ahsoka, it's not. That's sort of part of her thing, which is something that's really, really appealing about Ahsoka, right? She kind of was on that good side and realized that they're just a bunch of hypocrites and they're doing dumb shit just like the other side is. So I'm really curious to sort of explore that because this is sort of the aged up, mature version of a kid, right? Because that's what she was when she was introduced. She was this, she had her, I guess what I'm saying is like, I'm curious to see what her development is in light of the fact that we got a very different development of Luke Skywalker than people anticipated. So is Ahsoka gonna almost redeem the Star Wars writers for like, now we have this really evolved Jedi, or will she be, somewhat more cynical or whatever? What we saw in Mandalorian, I think it is what people wanted from Luke, right? So I'm, maybe they'll sort of go that route a little bit more so than they did with
is
Luke.
There a reason you're not showing the last cameo from the trailer?
Hu Yang? No, who's the last?
No, it was Hu Yang.
I was trying to like get through it, but you can see.
I was trying to be coy to protect you there.
No. No, I don't even know where. There it is. Are you familiar with? Does this ring any bells? I believe
Was he an Imperial droid that they picked up on that weird mission?
No, he was. He's been with the Jedi actually since the High Republic, which is a nice segue. He has been he's worked with the Jedi Order and has been responsible for helping younglings find their lightsabers. He was in those Clone Wars arc with the Padawans who go to Ilum.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, I was like he because he ends up he's in a ship with like characters.
Yeah,
that's what I
want to say. He was either referred to, if not seen, maybe not seen, in Jedi Temple actually because of his role in training younglings. I think he might have just been mentioned. But he was also, again, has been in the High Republic stuff. So I keep mentioning the High Republic because that's a big period that I think a lot of fans, even hardcore fans, have just sort of been sleeping on and haven't been paying attention to. It's been a fully, shout out to Star Wars Meg, by the way. I grabbed this from her coverage just because I hadn't seen it anywhere else. But this is on display, I believe, which is sort of a a rendering of that mural that is seen in the epilogue of Rebels, which Sabine is sort of looking at, and Ahsoka are looking at before they get together to leave and presumably go to find him, which I think is what we're seeing in the show. I think. Okay, this timeline, it's official. As a visual nerd, with some of the coolest, smartest icon work I've seen in a while. It starts from the earliest period of the birth of the Jedi. So that's the sort of icon showing that prime Jedi that we see in the floor of Ahch-To, the first Jedi temple. Then we get to the Old Republic that I don't think we've seen a whole lot of canonically. We have games that are legends about the Old Republic, but nothing in canon other than the existence of Darth Bane and showing him in the Clone Wars at one point. The High Republic is that where I was just going. The High Republic is this really long, hundreds of thousands, I want to say, maybe years, where the Jedi were at their peak. Right. So presumably when...
Did you say hundreds of thousands or hundreds or thousands?
No, I thought it was I thought it was like this really crazy number that I was like, that doesn't even make sense, but I might be wrong in that. It might just be...
I think it's thousands. But...
It might be thousands. It's really long period that ends right before the Jedi that we become familiar with in the prequels, which is considered the fall of the Jedi. So there is a sweet spot here that we're going to see in another series, The Acolyte, which is by Leslie Headland, who is amazing, did Russian Doll, which I really loved. And we'll see there a little bit of footage. Sorry, not footage, but some of their interviews and talk through them real quick. But just to get through the timeline, Fall of the Jedi is the prequels. Reign of the Empire is the OT, essentially. The beginning of the OT and Solo. Then we get to Age of Rebellion, which is like Rebels, the OT. Yeah. And then we get to the New Republic, which is Aftermath, Mando, and all those
Ahsoka.
Sort of things. Yep. And then Rise of the First Order is The Force Awakens, and a little bit of Star Wars Resistance. It's probably still New Republic era. And then the New Jedi Order was also the big announcement, and that Daisy Ridley Rey is coming back to lead films about the New Jedi Order. So that kind of gives us a sense. It's not MCU level, spelling out of what's to come, but it kind of tells us where Star Wars is going. And to go back to our early conversation, like there's a lot of new Star Wars that's going to come that will be the Star Wars for that sort of next generation of young people to kind of glom onto. And hopefully the next generation or next series of Star Wars things for all of us here, and hopefully those who aren't maybe as disciplined or share our similar outlook, to just get the hell out of the way and just enjoy it for what it is if you can.
Question on that topic.
Yeah.
Bringing Rey back, I'm here for it. But I think, like you said, all five of us are here for it, whatever they do. But is it a mistake? Will it be like, what is our honest sort of prediction of, because Rey is not as beloved as maybe they would want her to be. So, how far in the future is this? Like, how involved will she be? Like, could they have pushed it another decade or 20 years or 50 years and sort of just started fresh? Will it be? Does that continue the Skywalker saga, or is this a new starting point? You know what I mean?
Well, this movie is set 15 years after Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. So that,
and theoretically, it is as of now a one shot.
Okay.
It's not an announced trilogy, so if it bombs, we can pull the ripcord.
Right.
We can get out. And I'd rather see them try than just abandon it.
Yeah.
I think
Because
for this one, it's.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I think even for this one, this movie with Ray, I don't even think it's gonna have Star Wars in the title. I think I mean, they're leaving Star Wars, with that, the Skywalker trilogy, and they're just gonna call this whatever they're gonna call it. That's gonna be the title. But to me, it's.
There's no way they don't include Star Wars in the title.
Well, I no,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I kind of read. That's what I read, or at least that's what it kind of. That's my interpretation. I mean, I would imagine it has to be Star Wars somewhere in there. Maybe, if they incorporate it somehow. But I think because they did mention, like, this is the first movie, or since we ended the Star Wars saga, and I was kind of like, that was kind of a weird, weird way of putting it, but but I guess the Skywalker trilogy as with those 9 movies, but
Right.
but with Ray, for me, it's I mean the main thing for that would just be like, if I could see a little bit of that, kind of what you alluded to, Adam, like that darkness, or some of that, her being a lot more seasoned, or a little bit more in control, but then also have a little bit of that doubt, but then maybe go through some challenges. And 'cause I don't think you really, at least for me, I didn't really get that feel. Things did come a little bit easier to her, but then I really wanted to see just have her fail at something, but then learn from that, and then build upon it, and then kind of just rise above that, and come out better on the other side. So again, I mean, I think when they announced, immediately in some of the other discords I'm in and stuff, people were just like going crazy when they announced that they're making another movie with Ray. It's just like, I mean,
good or bad, crazy. I'm not in any. I don't know how Discord works.
So just bad.
It's
crazy.
not all Discords, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Instagram as
but
well.
Generally bad. Like, people are right back to, like, Ray's terrible, and we don't want a girl.
Yeah, pretty much going down that route. I mean, and again, it's people's opinions. I mean, it's like I respect it, but it's just, for me, it's all, I feel like the sequel trilogy did do a disservice to her by not writing her in in really good situations, or in the best situation. I think if this product comes out and they give her the platform to do what she can do best, which I think she's a good actress, and I think if they give that character some depth, then I think it would work. I think it would pay off. Again, I mean, to me, it does answer something. We're going to answer some questions like, where's Grogu in the sequel trilogy and all that stuff. It's like, little things like that. You kind of just may not want to know the whole story too, but there are little tidbits here and there. Like, is Mando even part of the sequel trilogy? I mean, what happens to his story? I mean, as the show goes along, but I don't know. It's kind of, I mean, we'll see. Where this all leads.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think it's episode 10 is really what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah, just to clarify, when you said the quote that this is the first movie since the Skywalker saga ended, I mean, I think that's just sort of matter of fact saying, like, we haven't done a movie since we ended that, and this will be the first movie. And I maybe struggle with a question, Adam, just a little bit, because I don't actually know. And I always question people when we make these statements. Like, I don't know if she is not truly as beloved, right? A character.
I just mean as far as commenters go, because
exactly.
Because I also, as I've said before, I think that in this weird microcosm of, YouTube 40-something-year-olds talking about, and 39-year-olds, I'll include you as well, talking about fandom as we do, and Aaron pointed this out, right? Payne's Toy Samples pointed this out, that 12-year-olds that love Ray are not making these videos and talking about these videos and commenting on Facebook groups. So I don't think Ray is not beloved.
Okay, that's where I was going
large,
to. Yes,
she was a hit within this community where we're going to hear feedback.
Yep.
Is it going to be the same vitriol that people just sort of spewed because of their preferences and ignorance? That's what
They haven't chased her out of the theme park. She's still a big part of
exactly. And I will say,
but that's because I think she is. I think people do like her. I think it's the minority, the very vocal minority.
Yes, thank you for saying that.
With a chip on their shoulder.
If your question was, will the same people who didn't like her before be upset at this? And the answer is like, yeah.
I guess, yeah. That was a
but the answer is, will the people who liked her, enjoyed her, or just even open to her enjoy and like her? I think, yeah.
Well, and also look at it this way: when this comes out, more of us will be dead. So just throwing it out there, there will be fewer of us in this bracket that hate her right now. So just
so. On that note, I don't want to go much longer. There definitely was a lot more to celebrate that was uncovered, that was brought up. I briefly mentioned The Acolyte, which is going to be the first live action thing we'll see in the High Republic, which is actually going to show us the transition from the High Republic to the moments when the Jedi Order starts to fail, to what we see. So presumably there could be maybe some either Plagueis himself moving into Sidious, or the antecedents, like building up to that. So it's really exciting, with an amazing cast, amazing showrunner, super smart showrunner. And it sounds like people are throwing around words like magical realism, that if you know Leslie Headland's work, is really exciting. Disney is not, contrary to what's out from some of those people that are commenting in the echo chambers, shying away from casting people of color, non-binary folks, women. There's like, if you saw that celebration stage, there's a lot of women front of the camera, behind the camera, producing. There's a lot of folks of color. So, like, again, it doesn't. Yeah, they're not caving to people, and things are still moving forward. What else? Just to name them, if you were wondering, what else is coming that I haven't named? Skeleton.
Yeah, I was going to. I'm curious about that one, because I've heard things about how the pirates are going to be in that somehow.
Yeah, so Skeleton Crew was originally pitched by John Watts and Ford. I forget the guy's first name. The people who brought the show to Lucasfilm, as it's Amblin. It's an Amblin movie, is like essentially where they're sort of taking the inspiration from. Okay. So what does life in a Star Wars suburb look like? And if people in that suburb went on a Star Wars adventure, and the adventure gets them tangled in with mercenaries and pirates, like, what's his name? Pale? No, was it Pale?
Pale is a character, but I don't know that that's the.
No, but is it
the only pirate that matters is Hondo.
Yeah, Hondo Ohnaka going to be in there.
Is that what we heard? Because I heard it was the pirate. I don't know why I'm calling him Pale, but the Pale Klatooinian, I think he was.
Oh, I don't know.
That sort of ran away
from Mando.
Yes, that's what I had heard. Was that?
Well, they said that there was rumors that the pirates from Mando were going to be in there, and then we saw most of them, spoiler alert, get blown up. So,
and that's why he gets that guy.
I don't know how that works. Maybe it's the day before, or
or it's that same guy that was kind of a punk.
The guy that ran away.
That did get away.
Yeah, I mean,
clones or some such, like.
Yeah, but they also talk about the pirate nation. So, I mean, there could be other pirates that look and act similarly, but they're not Goran Shard or Sharn, whatever the Swamp Thing guy was called.
Green Shard.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people are reading the books or some of the publishing effort, but there's a lot in there already that exists about how the First Order sort of was able to destabilize the New Republic using the rise of piracy and in the Outer Rim as sort of a reason for law and order, right? A need to come in strong with law and order to assert that we can take it back, right? And so my sense is that's where this is sort of all going. I don't know how the Mandalorians come into play. We don't know. To address your point, maybe, John, like, I guess we just won't know where Grogu is in the sequel trilogy till stuff unfolds, right?
Yep.
but aside from that, there's toys, there's all sorts of stuff, which is just a way to say, like, there's so many reasons to celebrate Star Wars. And I appreciate this group, as you all said, if we're willing to acknowledge our mortality and acknowledge that young people, hopefully for a very long time, should be able to be left alone to enjoy a Star War. I think it seems like, barring complete financial collapse and the end of capitalism and a complete apocalypse, it seems like Disney shall continue to make Star Wars. And let's be real, most of us will buy all the toys.
They're ready to cover all the timelines with like the James Mangold movie.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, think of it this way, though. In 2070, well, maybe even sooner than 2077, Star Wars, the first original trilogy the first movie would release into public domain in 100 years. So Disney doesn't own it forever.
Fair.
It will always, collapse of capitalism, all of us dead, because it's going to happen. Apocalypse, maybe, but I feel like, say all of that awful, horrible stuff happens and we're all gone sooner than our normal death would come. 100 years from now, whoever survives is going to come and start digging up things, and they're going to find all of these ancient abodes of the older generation, like the people who were, and they're going to find all these little plastic idols and all of these books and texts about the Skywalkers and the Organas and like the Sith Lords, and like, even if the worst happens, if there is even a shred of like all of our non-biodegradable plastic figurines left, archaeologists of the future will rightly so think, oh, well, they worshipped, like these Jedi or the Sith, or they, it is modern mythology. And like, no matter what Disney does, no matter how awful certain corners of fandom can be, like George Lucas tapped into like the most basic storytelling structures and characters that humans respond to. Star Wars will always be with us in some form.
Excellent.
No fandom can kill that. We can.
Yep.
No matter how much we try, we will die. But we won't kill Star Wars. So.
Absolutely. I want to thank everybody for celebrating. Again, I already lied and said we'd be done 40 minutes ago. So we're going to go ahead and wind it down now, because I don't have the energy that Ostradamus Toys does. So I want to thank everybody that joined us tonight. I definitely want to give folks time to maybe tell us a little bit about what's coming up and where people should look for you. We can go ahead and start. Let's go start with Adam and then work our way around.
Highly Articulated on YouTube, on Instagram. I got a video tomorrow. We're going to be talking about playing with your toys. Why did we stop? When did we stop? Can we get back to it?
Chris?
That's it.
I'm at Shiny Plastic People. I have something to do with Batwings in the future, because I'm doomed forever to do Batwing content.
He's the Batwing
because
guy.
It's getting the clicks. I have 3 videos over 1,000 views, and 2 of them are Batwings. So, gotta write it.
All right. Allison Troy, what is going on? Where can folks find you?
My channel's not up yet. I am on Instagram. Allison, let me double check and make sure it's correct before I give that out.
I think it's just Allison.
Allison_of_Troy. But I will be, you can find me there. I'm posting right now coloring pages and then time-lapse coloring pages. But I'll be launching my YouTube channel soonish with the logo thanks to Brick. Retro Toy Princess, and I'll be doing coloring pages from 80s, 70s, and 80s properties, as well as custom figures. And if all goes well, I'll be launching with some Evil Lynn content. So yeah, soonish I will be on the YouTubes.
Nice, coming soon. And Emerald Night Photos. Tell us about Emerald Night Photos.
Oh, just you can catch me on Instagram at Emerald Night Photos. Mainly there, I do toy photography. Really get into Mythic Legions thanks to Oz, and I guess you too, Prick. So yeah, I've been doing some tinkering in the lab with some Mythic Legions, and just got some new Joes coming in. So yep, just gonna be posting some photos, throughout the week.
Cool. And Aaron Payne's toy samples, who wasn't able to stick through because I told him we'd be done at a certain time. Check out his channel as well. What's going on in Brick Something? I don't know. Just check back. I'm sure there'll be something there. So thanks again, folks.
Hit the notification button, subscribe, and hit the bell.
All of those things.
Smash that like.
Yes.
Smash the like.
Smash the like. All of those things. Thank you guys. Thanks for hanging out tonight. I hope you had some fun. I hope you had some, fun feelings of nostalgia and joy, and hopefully a positive outlook for the future of Star Wars. I'm still geeking out. There's so much more to do, but we do have to call an end at some point. So thank you all. May the Force be with you. This is the way, and I have spoken. Night, y'all. Thank you. Bye-bye.